This video will show how to properly install a Color Touch Panel Flavor Burst unit to a Taylor ice cream freezer. First, we will show you how to mount the Color Touch Panel to the top of the Taylor freezer using the mounting plate provided. First, open the mounting bracket and locate the packet of screws provided. Now open the box with the touch panel. This is how the touch panel will look once installed. Take the touch panel to a flat surface and flip the touch panel upside down. Line up the holes on the mounting bracket to the holes on the back of the touch panel. Place the small washers on each screw and screw in the bracket to the touch panel. After all 4 screws are screwed in loosely, tighten each of them. Now you are ready to prepare the surface of the Taylor unit for the mounting bracket. First, you should clean the top of the Taylor freezer using a standard household cleaner. Now, squeeze the ampule provided to activate it. Rub the top of the unit with the ampule. The ampule helps clean off all the dirt and prepares the surface for adhesion. Now remove the backing. It is important to hold the lid of the Taylor freezer in place with one hand while adhering the bracket to the freezer to ensure proper placement. Press the bracket to the top of the freezer and hold it there for 30 seconds. Now you will run the Ethernet cable between the brackets and into the port on the touch panel. Now connect the male-to-male switch extension to the touch panel and run the other end through the bracket and behind the touch panel. Now remove the backing from the small surface raceway and adhere it to the side of the Taylor freezer display. Next, run the external rotor cable through the small surface raceway and press the raceway closed. Now run both the external rotor cable and the external Ethernet cable through the large surface raceway and press the raceway closed. Next, run the male-to-male switch extension through the small surface raceway and attach to the port on the underside of your Taylor freezer panel. Next, we will show you how to properly install a syrup bag. First, place your bag with the connector facing up. Very carefully remove the red cap from the syrup bag connector. Place the tray over the bag and slide the bag connector through the groove on the tray. Next, you will hold the bag in place and flip it over. Now slide the tray into the opening on the Flavor Burst unit and connect the syrup line assembly to the bag connector. Now remove the bag connector from the groove in the tray and press it back into the tray. This is very important. If the connector remains in the groove, the door, when closed, can put pressure on the bag connectors and cause them to break. Next, we will connect the internal 9-tube assembly to the external 9-tube assembly. Open the bag with the external 9-tube assembly. Place the 9-tube connector gasket on the external 9-tube assembly. Line up the plastic rods on both couplers with the slots and press them together. Connect the line coupler nut from the external 9-tube assembly with the tube connector body from the internal 9-tube assembly. Tighten the line coupler nuts evenly and at the same time, keeping any gap equal on each coupler nut. And now for the blending assembly. First, slide the gearbox assembly into the bracket. Screw the mounting bracket knob to the threaded bolt on the gearbox assembly. Next, place the gear cartridge into the opening on the gearbox assembly. Make sure the teeth in the gear cartridge are lined up with the teeth in the gearbox. Confirm that the cartridge is sitting flat in the gearbox assembly. Now, locate the tabs on the blending head assembly and line them up with the slots on the gearbox assembly. Press and twist to lock the blending head assembly into place. Now you will press the crown adapter assembly onto the Taylor freezer. Press firmly until the adapter pops into place. Now line the tabs on the adapter with the slots on the blending head assembly. Press up and spin the top section of the blending head assembly to lock the injector head to the adapter. Slide the bracket in between the door and the freezer and tighten the door knobs. Now press the blending motor assembly onto the gearbox assembly and twist until the two arrows line up. You can see this being demonstrated here. Now attach the external rotor cable to the top of the blending motor assembly and screw to tighten. Now that both the external rotor cable and the external Ethernet cable are attached, you can attach the other end to the back of the Flavor Burst unit. We will now demonstrate this. The first cable we will show is the external rotor cable. Connect this cable to the back of the unit as shown here. Just plug in and screw in the nut. The other cable you will need to connect to the back of the unit is the external Ethernet cable. Just plug the end with the open nut to the back of the unit. Press in on the nut and screw on the nut while applying pressure. Lastly, we will show the power cable. Plug this to the top of the unit. The power switch is located next to the plug opening. This will provide power to the Flavor Burst unit. Next, we will secure the 9-tube assembly to the side of the Taylor freezer using the stainless 9-tube casing. Remove the screw from the top of the casing. Next, place the magnet side of the casing on the side of the Taylor freezer. Place the 9-tube assembly in the casing. Close the casing, making sure not to pinch any of the flavor lines. Screw the screw back into the top of the casing. Make sure the casing and 9-tube assembly are horizontal and lined up with the blender motor. Now press and twist the syrup manifold into the opening on the blender head assembly. The first time you do this, it can be tight, but the subsequent times will be much easier. Make sure the power is turned on in the back of the unit and everything is plugged in. Turn on the touch panel using either the button attached to the touch panel or the small button located next to the other ports. The Flavor Burst application should automatically appear. When prompted, press the Accept Terms button. Watch the Equipment Setup Wizard tutorial to learn how to set up the color touch panel with your unit. Once your touch panel is set up for your Flavor Burst unit, you can select your flavors and draw your ice cream. To achieve a better blend, make sure your draw handle is set to a slow enough speed. The speed you see here is a good speed. The ice cream needs time in the blender head to get a good blend. Also, when setting the dispense speeds on the color touch panel, it is a good idea to set the dispense speeds to around 3. This typically helps you achieve a nice blended color throughout the ice cream.